Is Space Marine 2 PvP good, and is it worth playing? Well, first of all, it is kinda unfinished, and it is definitely the weakest component of Space Marine 2. But second of all, it is the most fun I've had in a multiplayer PvP experience in a long time.
Options change.
Casualty reported.
And I've tried to experience fun in other multiplayer games before then, and it doesn't really satisfy me like this. Space Marine 2 PvP has really good gunplay that feels just as solid as the campaign, and also offers a wide choice of classes and loadout customization and also character customization, which I usually rush through, but I spent around 25 minutes customizing my Space Marine, which I've never done before in a PvP game. There's a lot of Space Marine legions to choose from. Whether it's lore accurate or not is up to you. It also has some things that a lot of PvP focused games on the market don't even have, which is a good time to kill, and also no skill based matchmaking, which in this day and age where most games have it and prioritize it, is very welcoming. I'm really glad it prioritizes connection more than anything else. I feel this game is a much more casual PvP experience. Now with the gameplay, it can get very chaotic. It's kind of a grounded team-based shooter with different classes that have different abilities, similar to the Operations game mode. It's also kind of nice that having a PvP game where everyone isn't sliding around is satisfying. It's a very contained PvP experience that can become chaotic. Specifically, the capture and control game mode, where teams have to stay in the circle the longest, which the circle also rotates every 100 seconds. Capture and control is definitely the most fun game mode out of all the game modes. 2 teams of 6 are fighting for one area of the map and it can be complete mayhem. It is also incredibly fun and team-based. For the other game modes like Annihilation, the TDM mode, or Seize Ground, or whatever it's called, the Domination mode, it can really vary from fun to a little frustrating. I'm not really a fan of these game modes, to be honest. Some games in the TDM mode, you can have people camping with a sniper, and there's also no incentive to go to the other sides of the map since there's no objective. Usually everyone stays in the middle part of the map. They don't even try to flank or anything whenever I play the TDM mode, which is why I think the objective-based game modes are much better and just enjoyable overall. If you have lobbies in the TDM mode where the enemy team are just playing like Neeks and playing Peekaboo as a sniper in the TDM mode, I really suggest going into the objective-based game modes, especially if you have a group to play with. It can be very fun. There are definitely classes that are better than others, like the Heavy and Sniper, but I don't think there's one that is completely and utterly useless. I definitely think the Heavy should be nerfed in some way, maybe specifically his Billy just placing a bubble instead of the bubble following him, but really, I don't really know. His bubble also makes grenades bounce away too, so really the only counter is to melee him, but that's extremely difficult since his weapon does a lot of damage. The class balancing isn't necessarily good or bad, it's more just fine but also kind of weird. What I like though is that these classes fill different playstyles, which is nice, and some incorporate more team play instead of individual play, which in this game it's quite difficult to actually win a 1v2 or 1v3 if you don't have support from your teammate. A lot of the combat elements come from the campaign and operations game mode. Although parrying and melee is obviously not as good, there have been times when someone's meleeing me and instead of deciding to melee them back and start a melee fight or a chainsword battle, I just spam my bolter at their head and surprisingly I win the fight, even in a close range situation, which is kinda odd. The maps in this game are very good, but unfortunately there's only 3 maps in the PvP mode, which is kinda disappointing. Although these maps play very well. Except there's that one map with the fog, which God knows why they decide to add that much fog to the middle area. I like how most of the maps don't feel like they're prioritizing gimmicks and more like actual battle arenas that are designed for PvP combat. Overall, a lot of these elements make a really fun multiplayer mode that doesn't have modern elements like skill-based matchmaking holding it back, and I generally think you could spend around 100 or even few hundred hours playing this mode. Now here's some criticisms aside from the lack of maps. There is no customization for the Chaos side, which it could be because the Chaos side was only for the multiplayer mode, which I think is why the game got delayed from 2023 to 2024. Thus, they couldn't be bothered to actually create more armor for the Chaos side. So yeah, it kind of sucks that you can only really customize the colors of the Chaos side, which sucks. Although it really isn't a deal breaker, maybe more to some. I spent a lot of time customizing my Space Marine, but barely any time for my Chaos Space Marine. Maybe they can add some customization options later in the game's lifespan. Now one of the most insane and useful items in the game right now are the grenades. These can determine fights and can even get you double kills. Grenades can basically one-shot you, which doesn't really make sense for Space Marines. Space Marines are genetically enhanced and have an insane amount of armor, and some of the Tyranid warriors can survive grenades, so it doesn't really make sense that Space Marines are dying to one grenade. I don't think grenades should one-shot you, but should take your armor and 70 to 90% of your health. I don't think grenades should instantly kill a Space Marine. I've never delved into any Warhammer 40k lore, and I've only played the first Space Marine game, but I know for a fact that Space Marines probably should be able to survive a basic grenade. And also, since the movement in this game is very slow and a bit clunky, and it's very hard to notice these grenades since your Space Marine blocks 45% of your screen, it's sometimes very easy to avoid grenades or can be very difficult to avoid them. I don't think grenades should one-shot you, but make you one shot from death. Unsurprisingly, there have been some server issues, but these have been very random. Sometimes everything is perfectly fine and nothing wrong is happening, and then sometimes you're stuck on a loading screen, which happened when trying to squad up in PvP for me, which became quite frustrating. Reminder, some people aren't experiencing any problems whatsoever, and then others are having a mental breakdown from not being able to play with their friends. It's not really a game breaker, but it's more of me just scratching my head. Now, with my final criticism that least improves in Space Marine 3 probably, is that there's basically no audio design for multiplayer. There's audio design in PvE where you can tell where Tyranids are from their sounds, but in multiplayer, I've had some pretty frustrating situations because there's basically no audio design in PvP. When an assault class lands on you with their jetpack and thunderhammer, I should probably hear it. Dude, what the fuck is this game? Overall, I think Space Marine 2 PvP is actually really fun. There's not a lot of depth to it, and you know what? That's completely fine. And maybe if Saber sees that there's more popularity for the Space Marine 2 multiplayer, or PvP, they'll maybe put more resources into it next time, when Space Marine 3 comes out. It's a simple fun PvP experience that if it had a little more work and content, such as maps into it, it would be amazing. It's definitely the weakest mode out of the three, like the campaign and operations, but there's a lot of fun to be had here, especially with friends. It's been confirmed we're going to get more PvP maps and also classes, which is exciting. This means that in the coming months, PvP will become a bit more refreshing in the future. I'll give this a IGN Light 7 on this one out of 10. So yeah, what do you personally think about the Space Marine 2 PvP mode? Is it good? Is it bad? Well, if it's bad, it'll probably never be sorted into good. It's been Trojan, and I'll see you in the next one.